Good morning on Zoom and good morning in person. Thank God.
So amazing.
Yeah,
Hope it
I
doesn't
know.
get old.
It doesn't get it. Well, yeah. Bezrat Hashem.
Good morning.
Oh,
Hi.
that was so funny. I was like, did I press play instead of record? Good morning, Barbara. Okay. That was funny. Okay, now we are recording. Okay, good morning. I'll give us all a bracha. B'schus Lori, that learning together should not get old. We should appreciate every moment. Okay, there's a sheet. There's more sheets over here. If you want one, Chana. Okay. Okay. You know what? Maybe I'll just print like a couple more, and Lori, you'll be my.
I'll be the printer.
Okay. Awesome. Just in case.
Remember that kid in class that always used to talk back to the office?
Yeah.
She knows I need to stand up.
Just-
Like our
You're
little
such a
code.
good
Okay.
Staff meetings, I would be the one pacing in the back.
I love it. I love it.
I have a friend till today, he's in the back of the shul. Right there, from when shul starts to end, but just
Right.
walking.
You know.
Yeah.
Okay. We got to work with our strengths, right?
Yeah.
Actually, that's actually what today's shir is about in some ways. Okay. That was such a great segue. Okay. Good morning, everybody. We are starting Sefer VaYikra, which I think we say the same thing kind of every year, which is that, it's definitely a challenge that we have risen to in past years, and Bezrat Hashem will give us a bracha that we should rise to it again, of connecting to this Sefer that, in our everyday lives, we don't really participate in the activities that are described throughout this Sefer in the way that they are described in the physical world. And it's very hard for us to connect to the concept of korbanot. It's very hard for us to connect to the nitty-gritty details of them. And yet, in some ways, come on in some ways, hey, welcome back. In some ways, it actually becomes really like I don't know, in some ways more significant, right? Because in some ways, like Bereshit and Shemot are like so easy because they're awesome stories, and they're, like we all connect to stories, and there are avos and our imaos, and and so in some ways it's like bigger than us, right? And it's almost like too big. We try to break it down into bite-sized pieces, but what I love about Sefer VaYikra is, and I think that really Chassidus is the key to everything, but the key to Sefer VaYikra, which is that the psukim go from being about like a butcher shop description, to being something that we can connect to on a soul level, and it really just transforms the whole Sefer. And good morning, and so we are enabled to connect to it, and when we break down VaYikra into like psukim, that's where we can like dive really, really deep. Okay, so we're going to dive right in. Okay, I didn't hear the printer. Did you hear it? Oh, you did. You pulled the button. Okay, so great. Okay. I know we're like everybody's kind of doing what they're comfortable with.
I saw no one wearing, but I put my own.
I mean,
Last week we said that if everyone's vaccinated and if everyone's comfortable.
right.
Oh, okay.
Right. So, I don't know. Everybody has to do what they're comfortable with. Okay. So, okay, VaYikra. So the very first three psukim, which are on your sheets, VaYikra el Moshe, VaYedaber Hashem elav me'ohel moed lemor. He called to Moshe, right? And there's a lot of commentary on this, but like he meaning Hashem, okay? Called to Moshe, and he spoke to him from the Ohel Moed, and this is what he said. And there are many mafarshim that, obviously a Sefer Torah is not in volumes, right? The Sefer Torah just keeps on going. So, the end of Pekudei was, and Hashem's Ruach, filled the whole Mishkan. And then the very next sentence is, okay, and now he's going to say something, right? So sometimes, we separating a week between Parshiot and not really being used to seeing, like sort of like one long run-on sentence, which really is what Torah is. It's not, it can be broken down in many, many different ways, where we kind of feel like, okay, this is a new inyan, but it's really not. It's really like just, the next minute, essentially. And of course, it's always important to say that this whole Sefer takes place at the foot of Har Sinai, right? This is when Am Yisrael are really learning Torah there for the first time. This was the very first, Yom Iyun, let's call it, or Shana Iyun, right? They're in Shana Aleph, and they're really learning this as we are. Okay, so VaYikra el Moshe v'yidaber. Okay, so this is what Hashem is going to say. Before we go further, we'll just continue to read the next few psukim. The next two psukim. Daber al bnei Yisrael, speak to bnei Yisrael, ve'amarta aleihem, Adam ki yakriv mikem korban la Hashem. So, this is something that we've spoken about many, many times before, right? To say to them, a person that comes to bring an offering to Hashem, but the wording here is so awkward and weird. And we've had many discussions about this. Let's just keep on going with the pasuk for a second. Min ha-behema, min ha-bakar, umin ha-tzon, takrivu et korbanchem. So from the cattle, from the flocks, and from the from the animals, from the cattle and from the flocks, he shall bring the offering. Okay, now korban is, we know, and ki yakriv, we've spoken about this before, is the lashon of hitkarvut, right? To become close to. And so, we always translate it as sacrifices, but there really isn't a translation to korban. It's a ritual through which a person becomes closer to Hashem. One more pasuk. Im ola korbano min habakar zachar tamim yakrivenu el petach oel moed. If one's offering is an olah offering from the cattle, he shall bring a male. He shall bring it to the entrance of the tent of meeting, a perfect male, excuse me. And this is like part of what we're going to focus on today. Yakriv oto lirtzono livnei Hashem. He should bring it in accordance with his will before Hashem. Okay, those are the three psukim that we're going to be talking about, but we're going to be talking about korbanot in general. Okay, bigadol. So the very first thing I want to ask you is just to sort of set the groundwork. What do we do instead of korbanot? Tefillah. Okay, so it's always important to understand, right from the beginning, to set that basis in our minds that every time we open up a siddur and we daven to Hashem, every time we don't open up a siddur and we daven to Hashem, it's a form of korban. Okay, it's a form of Adam ki yakriv. Okay, a person who wants to come close to me. Okay, and then obviously there's the element of korban as this ritual offering and or sacrifice, let's say, just as a facet of it, right? And we've spoken many, many times about the Eish Kodesh, who brings us down in so many different Torahs, Hashem Yakom Damo and Zchus Yagen Aleinu, that really it's supposed to be us up there on the altar, right? Like really when we've done something wrong, or when we want to thank Hashem, or any of the chagim, right? It's all, every single instance of a korban is really in imitation of Akedat Yitzchak, right? And this whole idea of, I'm really trying to throw myself at you, Hashem, right? I'm really trying to offer myself to you, Hashem. But of course, we don't do that in the physical world. And so in the times of the Mishkan, the Beis HaMikdash, it was an animal, symbolic of the person. And today it's our words, our hearts, which are symbolic of the same thing, okay? We are pouring out our souls not in the blood of an animal or the offering of an animal in a physical sense, but in our words of tefillah. So that being said, okay, we're going to read the first Rashi, which is on your sheet. Okay, VaYikra El Moshe. And I think it's a really, hopefully it'll bring out something interesting for us today. Okay, so L'chol dibrot u'l'chol amirot u'l'chol tzivuim kad makriya. Okay, now we've spoken about this before, that calling really preceded every single statement and every saying and every command that Hashem ever gave to Moshe. And the Torah doesn't like always record that language, okay? But always when Hashem wanted to speak to him, when Hashem wanted to speak to Moshe, there was this calling, Moshe, come here, the phone ringing, right? Okay, the Ol Moed is ringing. I have to, I go there to hear Hashem and what he has to say. And then Rashi continues, Lashon chiba. It is a language of affection. Lashon shemalachei hasharet mishtamshin bo, and we learned this actually last year in last year's VaYikra Shir, that it's a language that the angels use to speak to each other. Shene'emar v'kara ze el ze ve'amar, right? And we say this in the Kedusha. Every time we say Kedusha, that they call, they turn one to each other and they call each other and they say, Kadosh, 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 okay? Aval nevi'ei umot ha'olam, but prophets of the other nations of the world, nigla alehen bilshon arai v'tuma. He revealed himself to them in a language of transitoriness. That's how it's translated here. I'm reading the translation, full disclosure, and impurity. Shene'emar VaYikra Elokim el Bil'am, right? And it says Hashem happened upon Bil'am. So there's a lot of discussion about like the small aleph, okay, that it's not VaYikra, it's VaYikra. In the Chumash, it's written in the Torah. It's written with a small aleph, not on your sheets so much, but the idea is that aleph changes the whole nature of the word. Okay, it's Hashem, basically saying like, my Shaleh, come and talk to me, and really there's there's this idea that Hashem is calling to all of us, in that same lashon, because we're Am Yisrael, which is not true for VaYikra. Okay, now, obviously we always take into account that like, our relationship with people who are of other nations of the world is very different than Rashi's was, and very different than, in the Middle Ages, Bigadol, or in many other generations. And we have to understand that lashon, that when we say like, that there is this idea of such a thing called VaYikra, okay? VaYikra, I think we did a shir once on the word VaYikra, carry, like this whole idea, okay? So there's a lot of meaning to it. We talk about it with Amalek, that the word is used there to refer to Amalek because it's this idea of thinking that things happen b'mikre, right? Not VaYikra, but b'mikre. B'mikre means coincidence, accident, I just happened upon you, right? Whereas, ma'aminim b'nei ma'aminim, right? We understand that the world is being run through Hashem's wisdom, and that every single thing that happens to us was, personally designed for us to grow from, to learn from, to take advantage of, to, all of these things. So, everything, we've spoken about this a million times, right? This is the background of every share, right? The traffic jam, or the, carpool that didn't go well, or the, I don't know, whatever it was, the person that we ran into, for good or for bad, whatever it is, it's all, it's intense, obviously, to live life that way, right? But it also instills in us a certain faith that, it's not all just mumble jumble, like happening all over the place. It's Hashem's, grand design. Okay. But I want to bring out a specific issue. Okay. And that is that, I think we'll do the Kedushas Levi first, and then I'll bring out the Ikar of like where we're going today. Okay. So let's jump right into the Kedushas Levi, which is the next source on your sheet. Okay. VaYikra Aleph Ze'ira. Okay, Ze'ira is Aramaic for small. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nהיה bidbaro. So the sorry, I just wanna it's like a okay, very good. Okay, VaYikra Aleph Ze'ira. VaYikra is written with a small aleph. Okay, Yivuar al derech shebi'arnu. He's gonna like basically speak about something that he spoke about before in Parsha Shmot. Ve'el Moshe Amar Ale El Hashem. Okay, now we actually spoke about this very pasuk, which is that in Shmos Kaf Daled, when Hashem calls up Moshe and Aaron and Nadav and Avihu, and they saw Hashem, right? We talked about that pasuk. I think we talked about it even this year. We definitely talked about it in a different year when we talked about the sheer of what does it mean that they saw Hashem. But basically, there's this idea that Hashem is telling Moshe, Ale El Hashem, right? Go up, come up to me. Go up the mountain, okay? Ki כשאדם עושה מצווה, זה המצווה עושה רושם למעלה. When a person does a mitzvah, the mitzvah makes an impression above, okay? It has an effect on Hashem, it has an effect on, Shamayim, on the world. וזה מעורר אותו לעשות תמיד רצון הבורא בזה המצווה. And when a person knows that, okay, it basically, he's going to say a little bit further on more specifically, but it basically, if it's creating a roshem lemala, so then the whole, the Kedushas Levi is very into this idea that what we do goes up to Shamayim and kind of bounces back to us, right? And so when we do like a mitzvah, for example, so then it sort of arouses this energy above that then arouses within us as a result, or as an immediate effect, to want to do another mitzvah, essentially, okay? But the way he puts it, and this is very important, he says, La'asot tamid ratzon haboreh, right? That it arouses in a person to always want to do the will of Hashem. And essentially the concept that, he brings it out more deeply in other places, but this idea, and we'll kind of develop it in a little bit of a different way here, but is this idea that what we do has an effect above, and then kind of draws down upon us a certain energy, brachot, clarity, all kinds of it opens a doorway for shefa. Okay, we talked about this in reference to the Hashem tzilcha, right? That Hashem is your, not just providing you with shade, but Hashem is your shadow, right? That whole idea of whatever I do, my shadow does, right? So Kedushas Levi brings out a lot in a lot of places, that how I behave has an effect on how Hashem treats me. How I treat other people has an effect on how Hashem treats me. Okay, so what we do here below has an effect above, but then that sort of continues to have an energy on us. It's like mitzvah goreret mitzvah. Okay, we're all familiar with that. Okay, and he's basically saying that same idea. Now here's the going a little bit deeper. V'hine Moshe Rabbeinu alav shalom ratzon shalo haya la'asot v'la'alot tamid el Hashem. That his ratzon, right, then became to constantly do the will of Hashem and to constantly try to grow, essentially, to constantly try to go higher and higher in coming closer to Hashem and serving Hashem, to try to continuously go to a deeper level, a higher level, right? And essentially he was constantly inspiring himself to do more, the same way that when we get inspired by something, so then we, Bezrat Hashem, we should use that energy and we should do something else. And then that inspires either us more or other people more, right? This whole idea of a snowball effect of one good thing, pays it forward for all of us. And so he basically, jumping on this, this cycle of like, he did Hashem's will, and then that created in him the desire to do more of Hashem's will. And then he's constantly growing and seeking to be close to Hashem. V'zehu ve'el Moshe amar ale el Hashem. And that's why the Torah says that that Hashem said to Moshe, go come up to Hashem. Zeh shaya ratzono la'alot el Hashem, because it was his ratzon to come up to Hashem, and that's why it caused Hashem to say, "Come up to Hashem." Right? It's like we always talk about the what's the mitzvah what's the reward for a mitzvah, right? Or let's say, what's the reward for cleaning for like you have a child and the child needs to clean their room, right? So there's two sides to the reward, right? You can say like, if you clean your room, I'll give you a candy, right? And that's like a reward that's not associated to the action, or let's say okay, depending on their age, right? There's this idea that like, okay, when they clean their room, they then have a clean room, right? And that's like,
we had a lot of that conversation.
right? I mean,
Don't you feel good here?
Exactly. I mean, I'm using a child, but it's applicable to, self-applicable, let's say, right? And we see, the benefits of our actions in such an immediate and real way, a tachlis way, a practical way, right? Oh, I cleaned this room and now it's like, so it's better. It's clean. I love it, right? Bezrat Hashem, by all of us before Pesach. Okay, but that's essentially what he's saying about Moshe Rabbeinu, that Moshe Rabbeinu, like basically activated this cycle where he wanted to do more of Hashem's will, and therefore he merited to do more of Hashem's will, right? V'zehu haremez be'alef VaYikra, and that's the hint in the small aleph. Ki Moshe Rabbeinu alav hashalom midato haya shehaya anav mikol adam. Right? We learned this before, that like the midah of Moshe was that he was more humble than any other person, and that's many Meforshim bring out that that's why it's written with the small aleph for many different reasons, but it's a hint to his midah of anava. V'lekach ha'alef ze'ira l'rmoz al midato. Now, I'll throw it out to you. Why do you think that this Torah is brought down here in reference to this small aleph? Right? How does his anava contribute to this?
Because if you're not a nav, right? I feel like then it's easy that like, wow, I did a mitzvah.
Right.
Right? And then it becomes more about you as opposed to about Hashem. But if you give yourself over to Hashem, you give yourself over to the mitzvah, then it's easier to connect and to
Beautiful.
Bring it down.
Beautiful. Okay, it's not about me, right? It's about Hashem. That opens me up, right? I mean, we always talk, this time of year, it's kedai to bring it down, right? The inyan of that, matzah is the physical embodiment of anava, right? And we always talk about like, those of us who make challah, or anybody that has ever made challah or seen challah made, right? We know that that challah dough that is allowed to rise, right? The image that's always, that's so good to hold on to is this image of like dough rising in a bowl, right? And taking up all the space of the bowl, not just taking up this, sometimes it overflows over the sides, right? And beautiful. And that represents many good things also. But this time of year, it begins to represent this concept of, gaiva, of pride. And the whole idea is like, that matzah doesn't do that, right? And when we punch down the dough, so then we always talk about this idea that then now there's more room in the bowl, right? If I, as a person, am constantly, overflowing my bowl, then there's no room for other people's ideas. There's no room for, to learn. There's no room to grow because I've taken up all the space already, right? Part of this concept is that I need to make myself not small, but humble, right? There's a difference between small and humble. We have to, it's nuanced, right? But essentially the idea is that I open myself. I punch down my dough so that I can, be open to to other people and their knowledge, and of course to Hashem, who, is the core of all of this.
I mean, I can relate to this. I'm not going to give a specific example, but like on mitzvah on Shabbat, and like maybe Borer or something, and you're like, you want to, you're in the middle of your kid's closet and they can't find something to wear, and you want to separate, and you're like, I want to put this clothes over here, but then there's not going to be another mitzvah. Like, if you're doing it reluctantly, say you end up separating, and you know what I'm saying?
I just had to pick out clothing and throw it on the floor. So
But
I
I'm
didn't
just
even
saying,
go
like,
where like a coach
if you wonder yourself, like if you're saying to yourself reluctantly, I don't want to do this mitzvah or whatever it may be, then there's too much you in it,
Right.
and then you might not receive the reward of another mitzvah,
For sure.
even
for
if
sure.
even if you do it. So like I think it relates to
Can I add to what you're saying?
Yeah.
Because I absolutely agree. And part of that is also like, there can be like a little voice inside of us, sometimes more than, sometimes it's a big voice inside of us that says like, this mitzvah doesn't really make sense to me.
Right,
Like Hashem
exactly.
doesn't really
And
want me
that's
to
you.
do this. That doesn't make any, right.
Right.
Exactly. And that's me,
That's my
so yeah, that's exactly. So yeah, for sure. This Aleph VaYikra, this midah of Moshe Rabbeinu, where it was all about Hashem, right? We always talk about the Moshe Rabbeinu was essentially an empty vessel that, just was constantly filled with Hashem's voice. And the more we can do that, the more it's a little bit counterintuitive, right? Because we sometimes feel like, well, the more me that's in it, the more I'll feel connected, right? But then it's actually the opposite, right? The less me that, the more Hashem that I put into it, the more I'll feel connected.
Especially when you don't understand.
For sure. For sure. And, it's a balancing act like throughout every minute of every day. Okay. So now I'll go back up to the Rashi and I'll say, how did Moshe deserve this? Right? By wanting it, by opening himself up to it. And, I'm going to put it out there that, even though we talk about Moshe Rabbeinu as, having been special from day one, right? There is very much this aspect of him working on himself, right? We know, the whole idea of like the back and forth when Hashem wanted him to take on this job and he didn't want to take on the job and they're not going to listen to me and who am I? And, all these things. And, that's like the aspect of humility that's, maybe a little bit more negative, like a self-judgment and doubt and all of these things. And the commentaries do say that Moshe Rabbeinu had that. And, there's a very fine interplay between what is actually like fake humility, but really ego, right? Like when I say I'm not good enough for something, so that's actually ego, right? Because why am I saying I'm not good enough for it? Because I'm worried about what other people are going to think of me. If Hashem put this opportunity in my hands, then that's it. It's not really up to me. Totally talking to myself, and you're all welcome to listen. It's not really up to me to, to decide, am I good enough for this? It fell into my lap, so it's mine to do, right? These children are mine to be their parent, right? Because these are the children who were born to me, and yet, and this is why I brought the Rashi, and yet it's hard work. It doesn't come down like a gift basket, wrapped in a bow from Shamayim, okay? It's this cycle of Moshe Rabbeinu wanting it. And the reason I brought the Rashi is because, it's very tempting for us to think that, to look at other people, right? And we only see each other's chitzonis, like we don't see the inner workings, and some people are very, very, very good at looking totally put together, right? And on the ball and, professional and organized and whatever, anything that, that we feel lacking in, let's say, and we turn to someone else and we say like, oh, she has it so easy, or he has it so easy, or, our kids say it all the time, that person is so good at whatever, okay, X, Y, and Z, right? And for sure there are certain natural abilities that people have, right? But everybody has issues. Everybody has challenges. Everybody has things that they, are sort of more naturally inclined to be good at. And there are things that they're not naturally inclined. And we don't know what it is in another person, what they're naturally inclined to be good at and what they've been working on for 20 years, right? Like it could be that a child who, or let's say, let's just take something very inconspicuous, like a someone who seems to be like a musical genius, right? Like a kid that plays violin at the age of 17, like, amazingly, okay? Do we have any idea how many thousands of hours of practice went into that? We have no idea if that kid, like, at the age of 3, picked up the violin, fell in love, and wanted to do it, but then, was crying himself to bed at night for years and years because he wasn't good enough. He wasn't good enough. We also don't know how he sees his own music, right? We hear it and we're like, oh my God, that was perfect. And he hears it and he's like, I messed up there. I messed up there. I messed up there. I didn't play that with enough kavana. I didn't, that was too loud. That was too soft. We have no idea because we're not in his brain, right? It happens with all of us, right? We see each other's things from the outside and we're like, oh my gosh, she's the most amazing baker, painter, parent, whatever, all of these things. And we have, and this is the Torah here. We must know nothing. How many times did I say? Times 50 exponentially comes without hard work. Nothing. It is all hard work. Now, one person's hard work and another person's hard work are also, not necessarily equal. Okay. For one person, working for 5 minutes is torture, right? And for another person, working for 9 hours is they feel like, oh, I didn't put in enough effort today. So that's also, right? And sometimes we think that it's VaYikra, that it's like happenstance. Oh, that person's so lucky. They got blessed with those genes and they're just super organized and super, I think I keep on going back to the same examples. They're super, super great surfer. I don't know, whatever. But try not to give myself away too much. But we have to know. This is like a Torah we have to like take this Torah to Ilu, like it's a pill I'm putting in my mouth, like a medicine. This is like a medicine to take every single day. To know it's not VaYikra, it's VaYikra. Moshe Rabbeinu wanted it so badly, and look what he did. He sacrificed. I'm not going to use that, but like essentially, right? He gave his whole life over to this mission, right? Any one of us that gives our life over to a mission, right? Like when we work on something really hard, then we make progress. Yes.
Speaking of making progress or not, VaYikra, VaYikra. Can you distinguish those two?
VaYikra means like he happened upon.
Ah, okay.
Okay.
Mikra, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Bemikre means like
Bemikre, okay.
it just
I didn't know
happened by
okay.
accident or by
VaYikra
coincidence,
is
right?
what?
And VaYikra
VaYikra.
is like, and he called him, right?
Okay.
How did Moshe Rabbeinu merit being called by Hashem? Because of all the things that we just said, right? Because he wanted it so badly and he spent time on it and he put effort into it. And the humility aspect also, right? This idea of working on that aspect to make more room for, for Hashem's energy to be drawn down into him. I knew you wanted to say something. I was like looking at you. I was like, I think she wants to.
No, it's speaking to me so strongly. The another piece at the end that I just like want to voice. That even when you do have like such a strong ratzon for holiness and to be so close to Hashem, if you don't do it with another, then I mean, whatever. Usually, it needs to be with another. Like
Absolutely.
Even the holiest intentions, they need to be with another.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's not the way of Moshe.
Right, and that's a very, very important inyan, and there's pieces that will come out in this, but I want to sort of put a frame to it. So thank you for bringing it out. This idea that our ratzon has to be mat'im to the work that we can put in, right? Let's say, okay, so I can have a ratzon to be like I don't know, Supreme Court justice, whatever, right? But like, how does someone get there? Right? Am I going to become the Supreme Court justice if I'm baking cookies in my kitchen all day? for sure not, right?
But why do you want to be a Supreme Court
Ah,
justice?
okay.
Is
So
it because
there's,
you want to help people and you want to bring justice into the world, or because you want to peg all the Supreme Court justice? So
Right.
like, you can be the same thing, but your intention
It's
and
important.
where it's coming from changes everything.
right, 100%. So that's the other, right. So thank you. I said the first thing, I said the wrong, I said the next thing that we're going to first, but you're absolutely right. To bring out this concept that like, right, it has to always be with, we're going to talk about, right, what do we say, our korbanot and davening,
Yeah.
right, tefillah, okay? So, and tefillah is also an inyan of bittul, of humility, right? To ask for help, to ask for, for guidance, to be constantly trying to lahat'im ourselves to what Hashem wants. Remember, that's the key here, right? It's not about what, I saw the best phrase yesterday. My friend Nechami Vogel put it on from her brother, Rabbi Eli Friedman, who's a shliach in California. And he said, someone once said to a great sage, I want happiness. And he said, great, now take away the I, and now take away the want. And what do you have left? Happiness, right? Because yeah, I could want, but it's not about what I want. It's about what Hashem put me here to do.
I know the answer to this question. I guess it's rhetorical, but like, is saying Baruch Hashem and giving Hashem the credit enough, or do you actually have to dive into Hashem for?
The answer to the question is we always have to dive into Hashem,
Right.
always, for no matter what, no matter what, right?
Even if
Actually,
it feels, I'm just trying to talk to myself now.
yeah, you know what? Let's jump right down to the. I'm gonna skip
No,
over.
I'm painting now, and I always say Baruch Hashem. I'm like, wow, whatever painting this is, it's from Hashem. Because it's not me. I don't.
Okay, you know what?
But
I want
do
to. I want
have
to take
dive
back
into
what I
Hashem
said.
before I do it.
Okay, I want to take back what I
that
said.
Feels weird.
Thank you. No. So Jenny, my answer to you is going to be, I guess it depends on what's behind your Baruch Hashem, right? So I mean, who am I to say what your davening should look like? I'm not. We all have different forms of davening. For some people, it's I mean, there's a broad range that, the Baal Shem Tov brought to the world, Rahman Ali Babo, right? Hashem wants our hearts. Okay, for sure.
Right.
The words are, a tool. And definitely when we can, if we can train ourselves to use these words, then, there is an energy that gets drawn into the world through, through these words. But, we all know the story of the Baal Shem Tov of the take your pick, the boy that could only crow like a rooster, or the kid that only knew the aleph base and, just said aleph bet gimel dalet, Hashem, you take these letters and make them into the tefillot because you know what's in my heart and I can't express it in the words. Right. So one person's davening could be, taking care of their plants, right, and or making a beautiful meal for their family, and they're thinking the whole time, Hashem, please, through this food, please let my family be nourished in their souls. Right. That's davening. Right. So if Baruch Hashem is, if that's your, if that's a lane that you get into where you're connected to Hashem through those words, and that opens you up, in the course of like that you're painting through that derech, through that path, I'm not saying, who am I to say that? Yeah, for sure. For us to find depth, in our every, right. It, there's growth that can be had from standing still, or being in our house, right. It's about, right.
In our kitchen.
Right. Absolutely. Wow. Thank you. Baruch Hashem. Okay, let's skip down to the piece that's the Rebbe, because I do want to, it has to do with the tefillah, okay? So this is from Chovas HaTalmidim. Oh, whoops, sorry, that should be Chovas HaTalmidim. Okay, so we are gonna talk a lot today about hard work, okay? But he brings out an inyan here that I think will also help us. Okay, so he says hatmadat ha'avodah hi ha'ikar. again, I'm like skipping a little bit, but Hatzmadat is like consistency, okay? Consistency and ha'avodah, so consistency in your work. This is the essence, okay? Aval efshar lo la'adam litkasher ba'avodat midit, but it's impossible for a person to, maintain a connection to this consistent work, or to, keep on working at this level of intensity consistently. Im lo yivakesh ota tamid, if he does not ask for it always, right? Re'ena David HaMelech bikesh me'Hashem, right? Look, for example, at David HaMelech, who is always asking from Hashem, Horeini Hashem darkecha, right? Send, please Hashem, show me your way. Right? I will walk in your truth. This is from Tehillim. Let my heart be undivided in reverence for your name. So, we say, like again and again, we have to like have this insight, right? Moshe Rabbeinu wanted, right? That doesn't mean that he didn't continuously wake up in the morning and say, Hashem, please help me to continue to do this job, right? Davka, that's what he's saying here, right? David HaMelech. Okay, yeah, David HaMelech was so holy. Okay, how? By doing this, right? When we're walking, when we're begging Hashem to please let me walk in your ways, please help me to do this. Please guide my footsteps, guide my mouth, guide my words, guide my eyes. Like these are all the things that, we think it's all about my strength. I need to do it. And what the Piaseczner Rebbe is telling us here is it's Hashem. You have to connect yourself. You have to be plugged into the socket of Hashemness, right? Of Hashem's energy in this world. And that is how, that's how we do these things. It's not, I do this and then I, get there, right? It's, I get there because I do this. Or I'm constantly working on it because I'm constantly asking for help to please constantly be working on it, right? Ed hayetza hara kvar harag k'moshe amra b'gemara, right? David HaMelech had already like killed off his yetzer hara, and yet v'likdusha al ila ala ad shezacha liyot regel meraglei kisei hakavod, and he had already risen in kedusha to the point that he merited to be one of the legs of the kisei hakavod, right? That was like his energy was so so high up there. He had already merited to draw down and to live this life in this kind of intense energy. Ve'im kol zeh, and nevertheless, ki'ish asher mibachutz velo hitchil od ba'avoda bikesh me'Hashem. He continuously asked as if he was a person that was not connected, as if he was a person that had not yet started to serve Hashem. He was constantly asking Hashem, Horeini Hashem esar derech asher bo elecha elech, that he's constantly saying, show me your way, Hashem, so that I can, come closer to you, right? Be walking towards you. Velo lifamim ubeshaot miyuchadot levad bikesh zod. And he didn't, lo the pa'amim, right? He didn't do it in specific time. It wasn't like, okay, Shachri, okay, now I'm there, right? We always talk about that, like checking it off your list, right? It wasn't like that. It wasn't like, okay, I did my 8 o'clock session, my 2 o'clock session, and my, it was constant. It was constant. Rak tamid bikesh zod, always, consistently, and always. K'moshe kasuv ki elecha ekra kol hayom, because it's as it's written in Tehillim, I call out to you the whole day. The whole day. Now, obviously there's, we have to do this with common sense. We have to do this with practicality. I mean, I don't want to limit us, right? But like we have to function, right? So, but there's a way to, to do this, constantly call out to Hashem, that if I'm in that mode and I'm saying, this is me calling out to you, Hashem, right? I'm like, we all have to, for each person in her own heart, right? I know when I'm speaking, when I'm, when I've shut that door and I'm speaking, kind of like from only me. And I know when that door is open and I'm, asking for that flow of energy. And it's, it takes practice, right? And part of the consistency is in trying to do this consistently.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot.
You,
And it takes
Besimcha. More.
because my kids tell me all the time, you're so spiritual, mommy, we want to hear from daddy, you're too spiritual. So you have to like, you know, not be embarrassed. And even my daughter, who I didn't know if she had a connection to Hashem, as I was changing her pussy earring, she's like, please Hashem, please Hashem. She's literally diving out loud to
That's
Hashem
beautiful.
comfortably. And I was like, okay, you know. And then my other daughter said that, you know, she knew it was going to be hot today because she dove into Hashem for snow. And I was like, okay, even though they're saying to me that I'm crazy and I look weird all the time, like
Something's rubbing off.
they're having
Having
a connection and they're not embarrassed, but you have to have, you know,
Yeah,
another.
it's courage.
because
It's courage and another.
your kids
Courage
will
is
try to
another,
make you feel
right?
bad.
I'm doing this because it's not about you, right? If
Right.
it's not about me, if it's not about, you know, it's not about us, then it's about Hashem and it's about Hashem's children. And, you know, these are Hashem's children. And, you know, and that takes me out of the, me out of the picture. You know, we have to refocus ourselves on that. You know, it's like recenter.
It's such a reality check. This is like a very honest comment that I would have to say. My husband will like, doesn't matter what we're doing, like we're in the middle of in the kitchen and I'm like taking something out of the oven and he's like talking to God.
Wow, that's
like, all
awesome.
the time. And
Oh, you told me that
but
story
it
about that.
should be awesome. I should think, wow, that's awesome.
Right.
Like, why can't you just do the dish? Like, why can't you-
Oh, that's so funny.
And so it's good. This is like a reality check. Kind of, you know, chill out.
That's so funny. That's so
Be
funny.
grateful that your husband's doing this.
Right,
Not
right.
just something.
I always go back to, I've told this story before that when I was in my like, you know, initial stages or whatever, when I was learning, when I was single and I went to spend some time in Machan Alta and Tzfat. And there was in my, like, I don't know, first or second day there, right? I woke up and there was a girl standing in the courtyard of, you know, of the school. And she was yelling, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like that. And I was like, oh my God, where am I? What is going on here? You know? And I thought she was crazy. And I can't tell you how many times over the years, I think I have thought to myself, first it was like, why don't you, you know, like, why wouldn't you want that also? Right. And now I've got, you know, I'm very slowly, you know, coming into the place of like, wow, I wish I, you know, and that was so awesome. Like, I wish I could do that, you know, maybe not standing in the middle of the courtyard, but like, you know, what? Did you say something? Oh, I didn't hear that.
I wasn't gonna say anything,
But we pulled you into it.
no. I really like this idea also of when the Torah was given on Har Sinai. That was given on the
Expand on that.
No, that it was given on a mountain. Meaning,
Yes.
you know, the song was like big mountain. and
Right.
Alto, right?
Right. Humble
So at the
Harsinai.
end of the day, it was given on a mountain. So there's something to be said
For sure.
about the mountain.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. The Rebbe always said, you know, be
Wait, what
humble.
do you mean by that?
Uh,
I don't understand.
I think I'll explain, but unless you won't.
No, you.
Okay. The Rebbe always said that humility doesn't mean being a shmata that everybody walks all over, right? Meaning the Torah bus in the end of the day wasn't given in a valley, right? And at the end of the day, there is a concept of a person being a person, right? We're all here for something, and each one of us was given individual talents and abilities, and we're meant to use them. So Har Sinai, you know, as humble as Har Sinai was, it was the smallest mountain, but it was still a mountain, meaning there, you know, there's a balance. It's hard work. It's hard effort to find that place of anava, which is not becoming nothing, but becoming what Hashem put you here to be. Right? Is that, did I?
Exactly.
Okay.
Spot on.
Okay, let's go back up to the other sources, because they each one brings out like a little bit more nuance. Okay, so the source number 4, okay, it's from Makos, it's from the Gemara. So this is like one of the most famous Gemaras, and you know, we often bring it out. It says, okay, it goes through this whole long line of attribution, but basically Rav Huna, Rava, who's the son of Rav Huna, says that Rav Huna said, and some people say that Rav Huna said it in the name of Rabbi Eliezer. Okay, good. Elazar, not Eliezer. Okay, min haTorah. So I'm reading in the bold part. Min haTorah, min haNevi'im. So from the Torah and from the prophets, umin haKtuvim, right? It says, we learn, b'derech sha'adam rotzeh lelech ba'molichin oto. Right? This is like one of the most important, I think, ideas that we could hold on to. On the path that a person wants to walk, Hashem helps him walk. Right? Meaning, this is what I was saying before about, like, if I want to be a Supreme Court justice, right? So then absolutely I need to question, why do I want to be the Supreme Court justice? But on another note, it's like, I'm not going to get there if I don't do the things that get me there, right? It's not like, there's this aspect of like our hishtadlus, right? So I have to want it. And then I have to do the practical, make the practical effort in this world to get there. And he just brings it out a little bit more in the actual, the Gemara brings it out a little bit more. So Mina Torah, it says, right, from the Torah, it says in Bamidbar, Lo telech imahem, right, don't go with them. And that's from Bilam, that Bilam said, I don't want to go with them. And so Hashem said, okay, if you don't want to go with them, don't go with them, right? Well, we see what happened, right? In the end, he did go with them. Okay, so this is an example of exactly like, if I don't want to be, this is my favorite actually example of this, right? A woman once came to the Rebbe and she said, I want to be a nicer person. And he said to her, so be a nicer person, right? And then he gave her a practical piece of advice. He said, whenever, I guess she was not the mother of the family, she was a daughter in the family. And he said, whenever someone needs something, when you're at the table and someone needs something from the kitchen, you be the one to get up and get it. And take that as your privilege, not as your, right, exactly. Okay. And he basically what he said to her and what she then said later on was that it trained her. It brought out this aspect of her of helping other people and like how it became a natural part of her personality.
Okay, I guess story. So one of our congregants when we were in America, did a lot of kids. She always been very holy. She was an acupuncturist, very spiritual, and each for kids she'd say, "Yes, my darling, my lovely, my holy, special boy." And I was like, "Oh my God, this woman is so spiritual." Like she looked at each of her kids and like sees their neshama right away, and then she's like, "No, I'm just angry as much as anybody else." But this reminds me. First of all, I don't forget their name, which is always a good one. But also, it reminds me that this is godly, like my love, and I was very special.
Beautiful. We all, right. These are like, we need practical tips. No one's like this, from birth. No one's like this, this is hard work. It's effort. It's tools. It's, tricks that we do for ourselves that form us, shape us into the person that we want to be, right? We have a vision of like who I want to be. So then there's a way of getting there, but I have to walk on the way. And when I walk on the way and I ask for Hashem's help, then I'm walking on the way, right? And he brings out all the different. I don't need to go any further because we're starting to run out of time, and I want to get to some of the other things. Okay, so look on the source, the Ein Yaakov, right? This is also very, very famous. There's a discussion of like what's the most important pasuk in Torah, and we'll just read it in English because it's here. Ben Zoma says we find a more fundamental verse besides, Shema. Ben Nana says, Ben Zoma says Shema. Ben Nana says, V'ahavta l'recha kamocha. And then Shimon ben Pazi says the korban tamid that you bring in every morning, right? And this is famous. Everybody always brings this for like, consistency. And as you see, right, it says Rav Ploni stood on his feet and said the halacha is like ben Pazi. So the whole idea is that consistency, and this is something that is very hard, right? But we push ourselves. We push ourselves to do certain things. And I want to just bring out that, we learned in the Bnei Benos Machshava Tova, right? And it's an important concept, right? I always thought of myself as an inconsistent person, right? And then, okay, fine. But like positive reinforcement, right? What do I do consistently every day, right? Well, I get dressed most of the time. I wake up. Let's start with that, right? I have coffee. I have coffee every single day, right? I'm super consistent about my coffee. Great. Okay, so maybe I'm not such an inconsistent person, right? And I can use that as like a gateway to, to other things. And it's a work in progress, right? And we have to always look at ourselves. We have to see the progress, even if it's infinitesimal, right? But we can look back 5 years ago and say, I wasn't doing this and I wasn't doing that. And, and here I am, and I am doing these things, right? And there has been progress. Life it's a very, very long, slow pathway that we're walking on, right? But if we're, baderech she'adam rotzeh lelech, ba molichin, right? It's one little step at a time. Now, there's 2 more points that I really, really want to just bring out. And I know I'm kind of like going a little bit, okay? But if you need to leave, then feel free, okay? Okay, so there's this amazing letter from Rav Hutner that I heard about and then found, thank God, online. That there was a whole court case that, this Rav Sher of the Agudas Yisrael was trying to get, for many, many, many years, he was trying to get funding for Jewish education from the American government. And, the whole separation of church and state is a really, basically just becomes a huge problem in that. And therefore, it didn't happen, doesn't happen, whatever. Now there's like a few different ways around it, but he had been working on this massive, massive court case, this Rav Sher, and it went against him, okay? And Rav Hutner wrote him this letter. At the beginning of the letter, he says, like, I read the article in the paper, and I thought immediately of you. And I know how brokenhearted you must be, and I know how downhearted you must be. And then he writes this: I've seen you over the years and have noticed that in the face of adversity, you haven't gotten angry. Over the 40 years that you've been in communal service, you have never gotten tired either. But now you must try to pass the most difficult of tests in communal endeavors. You have to learn that it is not crucial to win. It is only crucial to try. How do we see this in a Jewish trait? Every single Rosh Hashanah, we ask Hashem for mercy and invoke the memory of Akedas Yitzchak. But what happened at Akedas Yitzchak? It never happened. The Akedah was aborted, as they translate it, in the middle of the mission. Avraham never killed Yitzchak. True, the mission was never accomplished, but Avraham received credit for trying. In this merit, we see mercy every year. The clear lesson is that the importance lies not in seeing the final victory. The importance lies in putting forth the effort. I think that is the most important Torah I think I've ever learned in my entire life. Like, honestly. Right, right. But it's not, right? It's not on you to finish the job, but it's also not on you to say, I can't even start, right? You have to start it. We have to try. We have to try. And you know what? We think trying means, I'm going to do it, right? Like a pole vaulter, right? Like there's very specific, he goes or he doesn't. He either goes over the thing or he doesn't. But life is not like that, right? And even the things that we think are like the most important things for us to accomplish, we have no idea. Hashem has a plan, right? And what I think I've failed at, who knows, 20 years from now, it could be that someone comes up to, one of us and says like, those terrible cookies that you made that time, it inspired me to write a cookbook. I don't know, like whatever, and then it becomes like a whole, we have no idea, right? I thought that I failed at this. I thought that I didn't accomplish this, but I have to know that I am accomplishing something. It may be the baby steps towards a totally different, thing that I'm going to bring down into the world, right? But it's all about the effort. It's all about trying. It's all about, and then we'll just read the Chavas HaTalmidim because it's super, super important. V'keshelomdim Torah, when we learn Torah, tzrichim lehishtadel lavo el ha'akel mistater, that we have to make efforts to reach, Hashem, who is hidden, shehistir atzmo b'Torah, that he hides himself in Torah. Ritzoncha letaher et nafshecha. A person wants to purify his soul, okay, or her soul, right? Kvar amar Rabbi Akiva, And we learn, Rabbi Akiva says in the Gemara and Yoma, Ma mikva mitaher et hatmeim, af HaKadosh Baruch Hu mitaher et Israel. That when, like the same way that a mikvah purifies the impure, so too does Hashem, the Holy One, blessed be He, purify Israel. Okay, Ad Kan, very basic, quoting different sources. Okay, here's the kunz. Aval rak mi sheba el hamikvah v'nichnas ba yitaher. But only a person who comes to the mikvah and goes in gets purified, right? You can't, it's like the old joke about the flood, right? And the guy is like standing on the rooftop, right? And they send a helicopter and they're, right, Hashem will save me, Hashem will save me, right? Obviously, we can't, you can't win a lottery if you don't buy a ticket. You can't.
Hashem sent you a boat.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So Hashem is sending us things all the time, right? We have to engage. We have to engage in them. If I never try, then I'll never accomplish. If I try, who knows what I'll accomplish, right? I have to, and I brought this book just because I've been reading it and I cannot even believe it's Grit by Angela Duckworth, and it's your book, actually. So thank you so much. I've had it for like 2 years, I think. Thank you so much, Neely. You enabled a lot of Torah this year. You see how many bookmarks I have in it? Tissues in this house are bookmarks. It's amazing. I can't believe how much Chassidus is in here. It's so crazy. Grit by Angela Duckworth. Okay. I couldn't find like the quote that I wanted to read to you guys because it's really all.
Really, it's not about intelligence. It's really about
it's so about it's so much. The whole book is about. I'll send it out on the group afterwards. Okay. It's so much about just persistence. That's exactly right. Persistence. That's really like all it is. Like, when you think you can, you can. When you think you can't, you can't. Like the real way to become a great swimmer is to join a great team, right? Like no, that's a whole different aspect. I didn't bring that out yet. Okay, so fine, whatever. We'll talk about that another time. But like you just have to put in the effort. You have to come every single day. And I don't even know why I brought it now. I couldn't find the one piece. But here, I'll do it. Okay. Success is never final. Failure is never fatal. It's courage that counts. And I'll just say courage is another word for anava, right? Because when you have the courage to show up, it means that you're ready and open to receiving, Hashem's shefa, Hashem's energy that's coming through you, and whatever He puts in your path, then you engage with. However it turns out is not up to you. That's up to Hashem, right? You have to go to the mikvah and you have to, jump in, but it's up to Hashem what comes out of that. So I'll give us all a bracha that, there's so much more to talk about this. This is like the tip of the iceberg, right? And I'm trying to squeeze it all in, but it's a beginning, it's a beginning, and I'll just give us a bracha, like I said, that we should put one foot in front of another, and we should hold on above and keep on saying Baruch Hashem, and be strengthened by the fact that to levakesh and to work, it's doing whatever it's doing in the world, and it's all for the good.
Amen.
Amen. Okay.
Starting quitting.
So next week is thank you on Zoom. I'm gonna turn it off. Bye. Have a great day.